Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commodore Anthony Savage. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Emmanuel College from Warrnambool, Victoria. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Edward Wareham Eames. Edward Eames was born in May 1899 in the Sydney suburb of Petersham. Affectionately known as Ted, he was the elder of two children born to Walter Frederick Eames, a clerk, and his wife Alice Maud. Ted received his education at Petersham Superior Public School and later attended school in Newtown, where he was an active member of the cadets. After his schooling, he began working as a builder's apprentice and was just 15 years old when the First World War broke out. Because of his youth, Ted Eames had to wait several years to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force. He was just 17 years old and gave his age as 18 years and 10 months. Having shown the permission of his father, he was accepted. Eames was assigned to the 20th Reinforcements of the 18th Battalion with the rank of private. He and his comrades embarked for active service on the 16th of June 1917, sailing from Sydney on the troopship Beltana. Private Eames arrived in Plymouth, England in August 1917 and proceeded to camp to continue training. He was appointed acting corporal but reverted to private before going to the Western Front. Eames joined his unit in the trenches of Belgium on New Year's Day in 1918, arriving in the midst of a bitterly cold winter. He spent the following weeks in training and labouring, as well as short periods on duty on the front lines. Soon after his arrival, the enemy launched their spring offensive with a series of strong attacks along the Allied front. Throughout April, Eames's unit was stationed around Hangard Wood, where he was wounded in action. Despite this, he remained on duty throughout the remainder of the German offensive. By June 1918, however, it was clear that the enemy had failed to make any real progress, and the Allies began making plans for their own major offensive, which would begin on the 8th of August 1918. Eames was in hospital with dysentery when the attack began and wrote to his father, "I expect it was a bit of luck that I was sent down the day before the last big stunt, but I can assure you it was a bit disappointing. After waiting to have a good slap at Fritz, after practically playing with him for so long. Anyway, I'm looking forward to getting back before the offensive has finished." When Eames did rejoin his unit in late September, the enemy had been pushed back to their final lines of defence. Eames found himself back in the thick of the fighting when his unit attacked Beaurevoir line near the village of Joncourt. On the 3rd of October 1918, Eames and his comrades advanced on their objectives and immediately came under heavy shelling, gas and machine gun fire as they struggled forward and encountered lengths of uncut barbed wire. At some point during this advance, Private Eames was wounded for the second time. Badly hit, he was evacuated to a casualty clearing station and then onto a hospital behind the lines. As his family anxiously waited for news, nursing staff held out hope for his recovery. Several days later, he wrote cheerily to his father from the hospital. "I was x-rayed today, but do not know the verdict. I am feeling A1 as far as myself goes and have just finished having a good feed. I have very good chance of getting home with this wound, but it will take some time to heal. Dad, news is very scarce, so I will close. Wishing you the season's greeting, your loving son, Ted." His letter was accompanied by another from a member of the hospital staff who wrote, "Ted is at present in our hospital. He was admitted 3 weeks ago, suffering from a very severe wound in the groin. When I first saw him, I thought he would not live the night out, as his temperature was 106. He improved slightly, but the wound has still continued to discharge freely. Today he has been x-rayed and we cannot trace any foreign body in the wound or any fracture. He was also seen by the senior surgeon who does not hold out any hope for his recovery, and he may pass away at any minute. I am very sorry indeed to have to write such a melancholy letter, but I thought that you would like to know that he is among friends. During Eames's time in hospital, the fighting began to draw to a close as the German forces suffered defeat after defeat. On the 11th of November 1918, they could fight no longer and the armistice was signed, putting to end 4 years of bloody warfare. As millions around the world celebrated, Ted Eames succumbed to his wounds and died in hospital later that same day. Eames was laid to rest 3 days later on the 14th of November 1918. Today he lies at Turlington British Cemetery in France, beneath the words chosen by his father, the last of his line. Private Edward Eames was just 19 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who have died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the full pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Edward Wareham Eames, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old as we are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.
one. It's fantastic. It's really, really impressive, isn't it? It was. Some days, yeah, it was just, yeah, yeah, yeah. But just when you put that the contrast of the positivity of his letter to his wife, right? Yeah, yeah. He's thinking of his father at that point in time, isn't he? Yeah, Michael. Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, yeah. So you have a, you have.
Thank you. It was yeah. It is.
It really was.
Yeah, I was just talking to Wade, you know, the contrast of what the nurses wrote versus the positivity of this young gentleman who's, yeah,
I've never seen one before.
yeah,
That last line, that's the end of my line. That was like, oh my god.
yeah,
Yeah.